Many Nigerians have called on state governors to make judicious use of the second tranche of the Paris Club refund, which has been released to the 36 states by the federal government.
Public affairs analyst Adeniyi Kunnu is with us in the studio to share his views on this development. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me this wonderful day.
Yet another tranche of the Paris Club debt refund has been released to the state governors. But this is coming after there are so many reports about state governors not properly implementing the first tranche of the refund giving to them, and they're owing a lot of salaries. What are your thoughts on this development?
I think we first of all have to clarify what happened to the first amount released to them. It totaled between 516 to 522 billion. Now let us give you a picture here of that money's released. There were consultants whose services were required to help them actually get the monies out. And before this monies came out, much of the signatories to that agreement were the past governors of these respective states that have not really, measured up, as it were. So what happened was, when this new administration came in, because the tranches released so far are released by this administration, the consultants that they had agreements with to help them get this money, most of them signed agreements to actually give them up to 20% of the money that will be released. That's the first problem that they had. So initially, they thought they would get this money. But when this first tranche was released, it became very unfortunate that most of them said they were not signatories to that agreement. I'm talking about the governors that actually received this first tranche. So that has amounted to problems. So in April, a certain Ted Unwoko was a law firm, sued them that they are owing him up to 57 billion naira, over $100 and something million because of the agreement. So that also contributed to certain things. But you know the funny part, the Nigerian Governors Forum that received a letter from these consultants, according to allegations, did not pay the actual people that they signed the agreement with. They paid phony consultants. And that's why the Ted Unwoko sued them. So what they did was they had to tell the government, particularly the Ministry of Finance helmswoman, Kemi Adeosun, that they should remit 5% of whatever tranche they're going to give to them to the Nigerian Governors Forum account, so that these monies can be accessed to pay consultants. And that's why you find out that a Senate president who was not a governor, or who is not a governor at the moment, was alleged to have collected certain amounts. That's why a certain Governor Yari also was accused to have taken some of the monies. So that accounted for the problem with the first. Then apart from that, the fact that there was nothing like transparency also affected them. So for the records, they first of all collected over 500 billion naira. Now, of the 500 billion naira collected the first time, 5 states, the same 5 states that got the highest. Akwa Ibom got second highest, over 25 billion from the first. Rivers got the highest from the first, that's over 30 billion. You also had Delta, you had Bayelsa, and you had Kano. None of these states got less than 20 billion from the first tranche. Now move to the second tranche, 243 billion, which of course, would have been up to 500 billion, because they were told that they will get up to another 500 billion. Now for the records, the first amount released was about 25% of the amount said to be owed them. So having released the 243 billion, the first plea from the Ministry of Finance, or the presidency as it were, is that please pay your workers this monies as well as the pensions owed the state. Now let's give you a picture. Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Lagos, talking about Delta and Kano, all got equal amounts of 10 billion. Now, of all these states, I have to say here that Bayelsa happens to be the most indebted of the states that actually have had access to more money. Now, the impropriety of that state is what I do not understand. I cannot explain why a state that gets so much, even from every monthly allocation, happens not to be able to hold its own financially. And do not also forget that apart from all this monies given, between the last 12 months, going to 13 now, all the states of the Federation have been given to the tune of 710 billion naira as special intervention fund. So the point remains that I begin to wonder, the people who are on their employ in terms of management of finance, and it's really unfortunate.
Putting the situation into perspective, is the issue with the disbursement, the balance of the disbursements, how each state gets what? And if you're not comfortable with that, with Bayelsa, Kano, Rivers Delta, and Akwa Ibom getting 10 billion naira each, how do you expect the other states to react? What would be a balanced way to disburse these monies in your own judgments?
Well, I have to say that we really need to get a good picture of how much were deducted, because let me say this, the amounts that go to the oil producing states of the country happens to be much more than the amounts that go to the non-oil producing states. And that presupposes the fact that if certain monies are to be paid, perhaps deducted, it may obviously not be as much as what was actually given in terms of money allocation. So that logic solves that problem. But that being said, I examined the amount that went to the southeastern states. Of course, you know, we have 5 states in that region. Only a state in the southeast got over 7 billion. And that, of course, is the state associated with the government at the center in the name of Imo State. The reason I cannot understand. But of course, we have to also measure the economic activity of this state and how much they contribute, because all these things are relevant indices with which actually arrive at certain decisions in respect of the monies that go where or the monies that come from this state. So for me, in all of these things we've been talking about, what is very, very paramount is the fact that every state must begin to exhibit a measure of accountability. And I tell you, we should stop talking on social media so much that we act less in the real sense of things. Most of us are quick to put figures together, are quick to talk about these things, but I tell you, there are measures with which to ask questions, especially when funds that essentially belongs or come from the commonwealth of the people happens to be misappropriated. I've told you here that the second state that actually got the much of this money, happens, especially this tranche, happens to be Lagos and Kano. Now, you want to ask me why these states got that much? Well, I'll say both of them got over 8 billion. Now, from the first tranche of over 500 billion, also, Lagos and Kano were in the second category because both states got over 14 billion. Now, you're talking about economic activities, you're talking about economic viability of a state, that perhaps accounted for how much they got. Well, in Lagos, where I am domiciled, I can say that to a large extent, money is used the way it should because of certain things that I see. And of course, Lagos is not owing salaries for the record. But you'd ask yourself the question, why a state like Kogi, having collected the first tranche, now it has gotten the second tranche, will be owing up to 12, 13, 14 months salary. Why a Bayelsa state that is rich in terms of these things that we've been talking so far will be owing so much? Now, let us also tell you that certain states, some states, it's because of certain infractions. Ogun State, for instance, there are certain deductions the state made, but it has not paid. Now, Osun State at this point got well over 6 billion. Osun State initially got something sumptuous as well. The question I want to ask is, why is Osun State still owing? You want to go to a place like Zamfara, a state that has not implemented...
But with all these, if you allow me, with all these developments,
yes,
would it be out of place? Would it be micromanagements if the federal government imposes on these states what to do with the monies?
Well, let us tell you that every state has an executive administrator and the person of the governor.
Sure.
And if indeed we practice democracy, we do not want to go to a lawless state. Do not forget that some of these states also have 1 or 2 contributions they make. So if you, for instance, as a federal government, decide to use your federal might to want to prevent states from at least having a measure of control, do not forget these states also have internally generated revenue that cannot be controlled by the federal government. So it is only things that are the exclusive list that the federal government has the right to take from and disburse. And if you see, looking forward, we have to begin to address the issues of states really, you know, being made to look at how they could be self-sustaining. Because all of this impropriety are a result of the fact that you take from the respective states, you take to the center, then you now begin to disburse. It's more or less like Western European countries or Eastern European countries or the big country across the Atlantic coming into this country to take our resources and coming back to sell those things to us in finished condition. So I think strongly that what we must begin to address is that if these states really should have this money, then they should be made accountable, particularly their respective governments.
Of course, this issue is inexhaustible.
Not at all.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
For your time.
Yes, thank you.